art.
Hi, and welcome back to Painting with Connor. Today, we're going to be taking a break from this cold, wet, wintry day and going on a little bit of a vacation. So I'm going to be taking you all to the beach. I'm going to run the colors that we're going to be using right along the bottom of the screen, just like always. But today we're going to be working with titanium white, quinacridone magenta, prism violet, phthalo blue, Mars black, and a little bit of raw sienna. We're going to be using two paintbrushes today. I'm going to be using my 1-inch brush for all of our large areas of color, and I'm going to be using our 12 flat for all of our details. And then we're going to be getting a little bit crazy today and pulling out that kitchen sponge once again for a bit of a nebula effect going on in our sky. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be starting off with my 1-inch brush, and we're going to be starting in the background and slowly but surely working our way forwards. So I'm going to start with my 1-inch brush here, tons of white paint, and the tiniest little bit of magenta. That's going to give us a nice soft pink color. We're going to get ourselves a horizon line in here. I like to start with what's furthest back and slowly but surely move our way forwards. So I'm going to start just about halfway up our canvas here today. This is an 11 by 16 canvas. And I'm going to start just about halfway up. This doesn't have to be perfect, so don't worry. And just streak yourself a line right across the center of the canvas there. Decide where the bottom of your sky is going to be. Now the key here is your line doesn't have to be perfectly straight. Some people like to say they can't do art because they can't do straight lines. But you can. The key here is don't let it drastically tilt to the left or to the right. Just make sure it goes straight across there. Then I'm going to be working my way up the sky here today with pink and magenta, and I'm going to be doing crisscross brush strokes. You've seen me do these before in some other paintings. You're going to go in one direction, then the other direction, one direction, then the other direction, but I do it quickly. I just flick it back and forth. We're going to take that white and that pink, and we're just going to let it float up there into the sky. Just let it float up there. There we go. That's what we're looking for. You can see how light that pink is. Tons of white, a little bit of pink. We're looking for a cotton candy color here today. We're going to have a wonderful big old nebula floating around up in our sky today. There we go. We want the brightest areas, as in the areas with the most white, right around that horizon line, and then floating right up the center of the sky there. Now don't worry too much about these steps that we're doing right now, because this is what we call the base coat on our sky. What I'm going to do is a nice base coat across the whole sky, and then we're going to come back with that nebula texture afterwards. Then I'm going to add a little bit more magenta there. Now we're getting crazy. And I'm going to work that around the edge there. Around the edge of your white and magenta. If you need to toss a little white back in there just to help it blend, you can do that. This is your painting. You can go as crazy as you want today. So we're going all the way to the beach. Hope you have yourselves a pina colada because it'll help you with your painting. This is going to be a nighttime galactic landscape. So right now we're getting a nice bright center here and adding extra magenta around the edges. But see how I'm leaving that center area nice and bright, nice and light and bright by the horizon line and in the center of the sky there. There we go, and we're going to get darker and darker as we move towards the edge of our canvas here today. So now we got magenta, started with white and magenta, moved on to magenta. Now we're going to go into that violet color. Violet's one of my favorite colors. I'm going to work that color right around the outer edge. For anybody who hasn't painted with me before, the key to acrylic paint blending, the key to letting these colors blend together, is brushing over the border between the colors. Watch this. If I come up here and I add my purple, and I put it right next to the pink, you end up with a nice harsh border there, and that's not really what we're looking for. You got the right colors up there, but they're just not blended the way you want them to. Sometimes it actually helps to not add any more paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my water jar here. This is a jar with a little screen in the bottom. You take your brush, swirl it around. You should see your paint water change color, and that's a good thing because that means the paint is leaving the brush and going into the cup. Then I've got a paper towel down here that I'm going to dry it off with. There we go. Make sure it's all the way dried off, otherwise we'll be watercoloring. There we go. So in order to blend this, I just have to brush over the border between the two colors. Watch this. Blank brush, no paint in there. Brush right over the border between the colors, and boom, just like that. Like you're barely even trying. Brush right over the border between the colors, and all of a sudden it softens right up. Softens right up. There we go. Bring that purple all the way around all the edges there. And again, don't worry too much about this step, because we're going to come back and do our nebula texture all on top of this. If you ever need to go back into your magenta, you can. You can mix that into your violet up there just to vary things around. And then around the outer edges here, I'm going to toss in the blue. Now, phthalo blue is one of the strongest colors that I work with, so we're going to have to be careful with it. Otherwise, this color will bully you. It'll push you around. Get a little bit of that phthalo blue. I haven't washed out my brush. Just get a little bit of that blue. You don't need very much of this stuff. And I start on the outer edge of my canvas here. Instead of starting next to the purple, I start all the way at the edge. And I work my way in. That's because this blue is so strong, it'll cover up everything that we work so hard on. Bring that purple in with the blue. Letting that dark, dark phthalo blue mix with that purple. Oh yeah. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. Crisscross brush strokes, flicking your brush back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There we go. All the way around the edges. And we're going to wait on the black. We'll get to the black in a second. There we go. Something a little bit crazy like that. Then I'm going to wash out my brush again. Dry her off. There we go. Now we're going to take from this old, break from this here old brush. And we're going to hop in with the sponge next. Now the sponge, you got to be careful here. This is just let me set my paint down. This is just a kitchen sponge that I cut in half. Now the key here is nebulas don't have corners, so whenever I dab with my sponge, I take those corners, I squinch them back. So I get a nice round front there to get our texture. I'm going to start off with just white. I'm going to squinch all the edges of that sponge out. Make sure the sponge is a little damp, otherwise it'll be hard to work with. So I dampened up that sponge, squeezed it all the way out. And then I'm squinching. It's a technical term, squinch. Squinch those corners. Get some white on that sponge. Dab it out a little bit. Start in the center of your sky there. Dabbing, and as I dab, I rotate my hand as I go. Dab and rotate. And let it flow. Nebulas are basically just big old clouds of dirt floating around in space. So you can let some of that white flow out into the purple. Think of it like a cloud. Think of it like a cloud of dust. Let little bits of it float out of the main patch there. And this is just white for now. Filling in that main patch of light there, but letting it float outwards every once in a while. Little wispy bits float out of that main patch of nebula. There we go. Now it's hard to overdo the white because the white is very easy to cover up. It's very easy to cover up. We can always come back to it, but we'll see if we need to. I'm going to go into that magenta next. And dab that magenta, letting it overlap into the white. There we go. And remember to rotate your hand as you go so you don't get any patterns. If you do it in the same way the whole time, you'll end up with some accidental sponge patterns up there. So make sure you rotate it around as you go. Just working my way outwards from that light area. We're going to do the same color patterns here, going from white to magenta to violet to blue, and then we'll end up adding black by the end. There we go, and don't be afraid to create some shadowy areas in your bright areas. There we go, just letting some of that magenta leak all the way into the white there. Don't think too hard, don't think too hard. Just let it flow out of that sponge. Think like a nebula. Think like a nebula. Get your purple next. Just going from one color to the next. One color to the next. Start to add that purple around the edge of the magenta. There we go. We're going to get ourselves a nice cosmic beachscape here today. It's going to be set at night. We're going to get ourselves some sand to sit on. Get ourselves a palm tree to sit under. Just have ourselves a good old time here. There we go. Bringing that purple all the way around the edge there. Maybe a little bit of purple. Maybe there's a little shadow over here in the nebula. Maybe there's a little over here. There we go. Maybe. Get a little extra sparkle of white over here. Now I'm getting crazy. Gotta watch out. Might spend all day just on our sky. There we go. Then we gotta get the blue next. Remember, the blue is strong. You don't need much. Woo! Dab it out. I start from the outside and work in with the blue because it's so strong. There we go. Again, let those colors overlap on top of each other. That's the key to our blending here today. Make sure they're overlapping. If you don't let the colors mix, then they'll never blend. They've got to mix. And the more times you brush with your brush, the more the paint is going to blend. So in this case, we're using the sponge. The more times we dab with the sponge, the more our paint is going to blend. The more it's going to blend. There something like that. Then, last but not least, get a little bit of that black, dab it out. Start in the corners, work your way in. Ooh, that black's even stronger than the blue, so careful with it. We gotta get some black in there to get our nighttime contrast here today. Gotta get our contrast in there. That's what's gonna make the center look so bright. Can't have the light without the shadow. It's that contrast that makes a painting pop out. Makes it pop right off the wall if you got some contrast. There we go. Touch more black there. Maybe I get a little pocket of shadow right there. Maybe a little bit over here. There we go. Now that's a big old mess we've made up there, isn't it? Now we got ourselves a big old mess. That's what we were looking for, luckily. And that's pretty much it for our base coat on our sky. We'll come back to it. We'll come back to that sky. But we got to move on to our water for a minute. We're going to come back with our 1-inch brush. It's all the way washed out, no paint in there. We're going to go through the same color patterns again, keeping it easy on you today. We're going to start off with that white and a touch of magenta again. But the water's easier than the sky, so don't worry. Don't worry, we get to take a break now. The only difference here is the way we're going to paint the water. All of our brush strokes are going to go side to side. And I like to hold my brush horizontally or sideways like this. So instead of holding it vertically and pulling it this way, you get a thick line, right? If you rotate it 90 degrees and use that thin edge, we're going to get a bunch of thin lines as we paint our water. It'll make more sense why I'm doing this as I go along, but I'm going to start up here on the horizon line and approximately cut off where I want the bottom of the sky to be. We'll clean up that horizon line in a little bit. Got a little surprise for you there. White and magenta. Again, make sure this is a relatively flat line. It doesn't drastically tilt to the left or to the right. It stays flat. It's okay if it wobbles, but keep it flat. Otherwise, it's going to look like all your water is going to pour off one side of the canvas. White and magenta. Streak it side to side. There we go. Once you get that horizon line, just start to streak it in there. Again, the center of the water is going to be the brightest area, just like in the sky. We're loosely reflecting our sky here today. And as we blend these colors, you're going to see why I hold my brush the way that I do, because it's going to automatically give us some ripple effects as we go. So I'm bringing this white magenta combo. There we go. You can already see some ripples popping out there. Bring that white and magenta combo down the center of the water. Keep it loose though. What I don't want to see is at the end of this, I don't want to see perfect little boxes of color here in our water. We're going to be going through all these crazy colors up here and adding them into our water. But don't put them in a box. Don't put your water in a box. Let it flow. We got an ocean here today. The ocean flows around. Let it flow. Let it flow. Let it loose. There we go. Get it nice and bright in the center there. There we go. Then I'm going to go into more magenta there. Just adding a bunch more magenta on my brush. Streak it in. Oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for. There we go. Darkening up the outer edges. And you can see here that I'm creating little streaks happening. Don't keep this a firm box again. Let a little bit of magenta leak into the light area. Every once in a while. Keep these edges loose. Keep them loose. Gotta stay loose today. Gotta stay loose. If you're not loose while you're painting, you'll be able to tell when you finish it. You'll be able to tell. We don't want any tight paintings. We want them loose. We want them free, especially when you're painting the ocean. Especially when you're painting the ocean. There we go. The ocean's one of my favorite places to go. It's nothing like the ocean. There we go. Streak it in there, all the way around. We're using a bunch of pink again because we learned from the sky. We know that that purple and that blue will have no trouble layering on top of this pink. No trouble at all. If you ever need to, you can go back into the white just to help with your blending. Bounce back and forth just a little bit before we get to that purple and blue. There we go. That just helps us soften up that blending a little bit. Give it a little touch extra white up there by the horizon. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I was looking for. Then I'll get that purple. I get carried away on each of these steps. You could spend about triple the time on each of these steps than I do. You could just get yourself carried away. Bring that purple around the edge again. Let it overlap on top of the pink. Streak it in there. There we go. Just a little bit of purple around the edge. Make sure you're letting it blend. See how I'm letting this purple bounce around a little bit? I don't keep it all in one space. Sometimes my brush bounces. Sometimes I get a little purple in the middle there. That's not a problem at all. If you think about the way light refracts in water, it's bouncing all around. Light bounces all over the place. It really does. Give myself a little bit more purple on my palette here. Used more purple than I thought I would. Go. And I'm going to add a little bit extra purple down here at the bottom. Just really get it in there. There we go. Something a little bit like that. That'll do for now. That'll do for now. Then let's see. We got to get our blue in. Got to get our blue in next. And I haven't washed my brush this whole time. You can see it's covered. It's covered in stuff. That's just because I haven't needed to. You can if you want to. Bring that blue in from the edge. Again, be careful. Start with just a little. Start with just a little. I promise you. The amount of times this blue has taken over my whole painting. Too many. Too many times. Learn from my mistakes. And you want tons of blue at the bottom, though. That's where you want a lot of blue. You want that all the way full of blue. All the way full of blue down there. Just a little bit around the edges, though. I'm going to go ahead and get all that blue down there. Boom. Get messy with it. Get messy with it. Just streak it in there. Anytime you see these little white bits showing through, that's your canvas texture showing through because little air pockets form on the canvas. If you're having trouble with those, sometimes it helps to scrub your canvas a little bit. Get some elbow grease in there. And that can help you. There we go. And then just bring a little bit of blue around the edge here. Oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I was looking for. And then I'm going to wash out my brush. Oh, there it goes. Gotta have fun while you're painting. Then, I'm just going to sweep my whole painting with a blank brush, mostly blank, should be blank, and just sweep that water. You'll see there that it streaks a couple little colors there. That gets you some little accidents that you weren't expecting. Just helps to soften everything up. There we go. Then I'm going to add black down here at the bottom. Boom, get that contrast coming in now. Just a little bit of black. I'm not going to focus on that black too much down in the water. Just a little bit will go a long way. There we go. And that's pretty much what we're looking for there on the base coat on our water. Once again, I'm going to wash out my brush. This time I'm not going to awkwardly lean over like I did before. The trouble is I don't have a tall enough table. My table is only about 1.5 feet tall. So I keep having to bend over. Now, you thought we were crazy before, but now we're really going to get crazy. And we got to get some stars up here. So if you've watched me before, you've seen me do this before, but if you haven't, this is where it gets exciting. Make sure you're in a place that is safe to splatter. We're going to be doing some splatter stars here today. So I've got a wonderfully crinkly tarp down on the ground here, just to make sure my girlfriend doesn't get mad at me. And I'm going to be splattering these stars up here. I'm going to be using white, my 1-inch brush, but the key here is you've got to use water and white. So what I do, I'll show you here on my palette. I'm going to scoop a little bit of that white paint. You don't need all of it, just a little bit of it. Take a little bit of it, swirl it around a little bit. Take a little bit of it, swirl it around. The reason why I'm doing this is I'm getting that paint into the bristles of the brush. You can see I'm kind of mashing the paint into the brush there. That's the key. If it's just kind of gooped off and dripping off the side of the brush, that won't do any good. That'll give you a big goop star up there. So you want to make sure it's in the bristles of the brush. Then we got to get some water. So I'm going to take my brush, dip it right in my water jar, bring that water back to my paint swirl, mix that paint and water together. You're looking for about 50% water, 50% paint. Thin out that paint and make sure you mix the water and the paint together. That's what I'm doing right now. If you just take water and paint, you'll end up with paint splatters and water splatters instead of what I'm going for, which is thin paint. I'm thinning out that white paint with the water. I think that's pretty good. And then if you've got it gooped up, make sure you wipe it off. Sometimes it gets gooped up, but you can see there that I don't have any goop dripping off of my paintbrush there. It's all contained inside of the bristles. Then I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to hold it flat to my canvas. I'm not going to angle it towards my canvas. This will give me a meteor shower. Now, if you're looking for that, that's the way you do it. You do it on an angle. It'll go down. But I'm going to try and hold my brush flat to the canvas. Then I'm going to smack the brush into my open hand here, into the canvas. Now, if I stood right here, I would turn around and I would be covered in paint. The way I'm going to avoid getting completely covered in paint is standing to the side here. It's so that you can see what I'm doing, but also so I don't get completely covered. So I'm going to come up here, hold it flat to the canvas, smack the brush into your open hand here. Tap, 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 tap. You want it in the sky and you want it in the water. You want it everywhere. There we go. I'm not getting my security deposit back anyway, so why not make the most of it? As many stars as you like. I want a lot of stars. I put some extra right into the center of the nebula there. Extra in the nebula. Nebulas are full of stars. There we go. You can hear how loud I'm smacking. Really get in there. I think that's about good. It gets all over my hands, but it doesn't get all over me if you stand a little bit to the side, just like that. And I'm going to wash out my brush. Now you'll notice here we've got a little bit of a rough area out there by our horizon line, and we're going to sort that out right now. Swing. I'm going to come right back with my 12 flat, and I'm going to be using black paint to get some little tiny mountains out there. I like to make them a little taller on the outer edges and slope down towards the middle. And I say mountains because a lot of Caribbean islands have some mountains on them, or Hawaii too. So these are far off islands. So they're not going to cover the whole horizon line. There will be gaps. So I'm going to get some black paint right there on my brush. There we go. And I start with the top edge. I'm going to keep them pretty small. I'm going to keep them small. These are in the distance. And I'm going to start with the top edge. Can't see that one because it's in the black. There we go. Now you can see what I'm doing. Just some real small little hills and things back there. And maybe this one runs out right there. When you decide that you want to end an island, one of these far off islands, then you're going to pull straight back, cleaning up that horizon line. See how I got all this funky business? That's the secret to being a painter. Cover up your mistakes. Cover them up. Just bring that black back. Fill that all in. Cover up all those. Cover up that mess I made. There we go. Cover up your mess. Clean it up. And I'm going to start on this side. Add another one over here. Maybe this one starts off tall. Tumbles down. I just recently went to the Dominican Republic for the first time. And that's where some of the tropics that are in the movie Jurassic Park were filmed. That's kind of what I'm inspired off of it with this painting here right now. With these rocky, far off islands. That's what I'm going for. They're fully in silhouette though, so they're all black. Nice and easy. Maybe add another one right there. There's another rock. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, there we go. Just using black paint. I'm just making it up. Making it up as I go along. There we go, and that gives you that high contrast of those black islands and that really bright nebula that we've got going on here today. Next, we're going to get ourselves a palm tree. We're going to get a palm tree in here today, but we got to give them a place to sit. So still using that black paint, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cover up this bottom left-hand corner. And I'm just going to swoop it in just the same way I swoop those in. Lumps and bumps are your key here today. Got a lump and bump. This is dirt, rocks. There's no wrong way to do it. The only wrong way to do it is to make it too smooth. Don't make it too smooth. Then it'll look like your palm tree's sitting on a balloon island. I like to have some rocks down there. There we go. Just add a little hill there in the corner. A rocky hill. Now we gotta get brave. Now we gotta get brave. Because we've got to put a nice big tree going across everything that we just worked so hard on up there. So I'm taking that black paint. The key to a tree is the tips have to be smaller than the trunk. The trunk is the thickest part, and as it grows outwards, it gets smaller and smaller. Now, palm trees are a little bit funky. because they got those funky tops to them. But the trunk of a palm tree, the top is the smallest, and it gets bigger and bigger as it goes down. So that's where we're going to start off with. Oh, we're going to get crazy. We're going to pop them all the way up here, and I'm going to have them lean a little bit into the center of the painting here. So I'm going to start right up here, nice and light with your brush at first. Then press down harder and harder as you go. Boom. Never get anywhere in life if you don't get brave. There we go. And I'm just getting some more paint to make sure it's nice and solid, because again, you can see those little pockets form sometimes. There we go. So you let the bottom of the trunk be a little bit bigger. Let it spread out at the bottom. That's where you're going to sit and drink your pina colada. There we go. Have a slight spread. Now, palm trees, again, are a little bit different than other trees. They don't have much spread at their base, but make sure it looks like you can grab hold of that rock. Now we got ourselves a nice trunk. The next thing we're going to do is sketch out our palm fronds. Our palm fronds. Got to get our fronds in there. Our friendly fronds. I'm going to start off with what I call the skeleton of the palm tree, the skeleton of the palm fronds, which looks like a black firework. Typically, with a painting like this, when you're just making it up from your head, I think the best amount of palm fronds is somewhere between 5 and 7 palm fronds. When you get to 4 palm fronds, your palm tree looks a little sad. If you get more than 7, it starts to look a little crowded. Now, if you can fit 8 on there, be my guest. But I find between 5 and 7 is a pretty good number. Just black paint still. I'm going to use the thin edge of my 12 flat brush and just sketch out where I think these might go. I'm not doing the actual palm frond. I'm just sketching where I want them to go. Now you can see they go out and then they got hang to them. These guys hang down. They got hang, these fronds. Gravity's pulling those palm fronds down. Make that one a little longer. There we go. 3. Maybe one right there. 4. 5. You can see it starts to get crowded. 6. Let's start with 6. You can always add another one later. I'm going to start with 6. I think I've bit off enough. Then to get the actual fluff on the palm fronds, the leaves on the palm fronds, I think they look like feathers a lot of times. They're like very messy feathers. So what I do is I take my brush and I line the flat edge or the straight edge up against the palm frond stem. I stick it on there, then I pull down and I lift up off the canvas. I pull down, I lift up. And you'll see there that I'm curving the brush just slightly as I go. A little more paint on my brush. Pull down, lift up, give it a slight curve. Just how the branches have a slight curve and bend to them, so do the fronds. And make sure all the fronds, see how they're all angling towards the tip of the branch there. There we go. And you end up with something fluffy like that. Now that's just one side of the palm frond. Maybe I'll add a couple little bits sticking up off the top. But this one's hanging over to the side. So we really only see one side. I'm going to do this one up on the top because if it's going straight up, it's going to splay out on both sides. So you're going to go in one direction, pulling outwards, lifting up off the canvas. Just a little flicking brush stroke there. Don't overthink this. And then you get it coming out the other side. And you can see there why I use that feather metaphor, because this one really starts to look like a feather when you can see both sides. There we go. Just pop these palm trees in there. Now you could do more palm trees than just one. I think I'll just do one today. One solitary palm tree today. It's not solitary because we're there with it though. Trees are good friends. Trees are good friends. There we go. And this one just hangs right down. Again, I'm a little bit messy with these. You know why? Because trees are a little messy. Trees are a little messy. If it's too perfect, it's going to start to look a little plastic. It's going to start to look a little artificial. So you got to be a little bit messy with these fronds. As long as you let them flow, every once in a while a frond is going to stick in the wrong direction, or they're going to have a broken branch or something like that. All those little imperfections are what makes nature beautiful. So allowing your painting to have little accidental imperfections is what's going to make your painting stand out. That's what will make it stand out. There we go. And our last frond up there. Again, pull down, angle it towards the tip of the branch, and lift up off the canvas. I got that lift up off the canvas. There we go. Gotta get that lift up. And then palm trees have that little area that, I don't know if palm trees always have coconuts. I'm not an expert on palm trees. But they always kind of have a lump here. That's where all the old palm fronds were. So I like to thicken up that area just to make sure it feels full. This is a silhouette, which just makes everything easier for us. Just makes it easier on us. So we don't have to actually know what it is. I just know it has to be thicker up there. There we go. Then if you want to take some of that black, we can add a couple little bits of grass down there. Why not? Why not? I'm just using the thin edge of my brush. There we go. Got little bits of grass there. There we go. And that's pretty much what we're looking for there on that palm tree. Now we're going to take a little break from our palm tree because what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of beach over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a water line. I washed out my brush, coming back with just white paint, holding it horizontally. And I'm just going to sweep in. There we go. It's kind of like an S brush stroke. Like a snake wiggling back and forth. And it disappears. And that's like the foam on the edge of the beach there. That's that foam on the edge of the beach. Then what I do, I pull horizontally straight across. I smear it. Smear it into the rest of the painting. Just soften up that edge. There we go. Then maybe we add another little wobble. This time I'm going real light with my brush. Just adding some little ripples happening out there. There we go. Something a little bit like that. If you feel like ever when you're doing this, you need to tone down some of your white. I think some of this white needs to be toned down. Go back to whatever the base coat is you've got there. I had blue down there, so I'm going to get a little bit of blue. Blend it in. And we talked about how strong that blue is. That blue's got no problem cooling that white off. No problem at all. There we go. Now we got ourselves a little bit of a water line happening. Just like that. Just like that. Then I gotta get some sand. That's why I had this raw sienna this whole time. This whole time. Get yourself a little bit of that raw sienna. I'm going to start with just raw sienna first. And we're just going to start to fill in this little area. I go right up to the edge of that water line. Right up to the edge. Now this raw sienna is kind of like the color of the shadow in sand. Whenever I'm doing a painting like this that's a little bit crazy colors, I like to toss in a slightly more natural color every now and then. Because just like with the contrast of light to dark, the contrast of something a little bit more neutral to all of our crazy colors can help us out. There. Starting with that raw sienna. Now I'm going to mix in some white. I'm just going to blend that white in. But here's the key. Keep on flowing with the beach. See how I'm flowing with that same snaking line there? Keep the flow here. That's what's going to make it look like your water has been washing up on the beach there. Maybe you switch back to the raw sienna. Maybe a little more. There we go. Switch back. Sweep it in there. Keep running out of paint. There we go. Sweep it in there. There it is. Follow that same swoop. Get some more white. There we go. Maybe go back to the raw sienna. Swoop it in there. Go back to the white. Follow that same little snaking line. Give yourself some ripples in those sands. Then add just a little bit of black into your raw sienna for the corner. You want that corner to be much darker. Much darker in the corner, so I mix a little black in there. Gets you kind of a more dirty sand, darker brown. There it is. There's our beach. Now we got ourselves a little beach. Popped it right in there, no problem at all. No problem at all. Then, with this same color, this raw sienna color, trees are brown. A lot of times. You can take that brownish color, even with the black in it. I think it'll look good with the black in it. We've let this black mostly dry, so now we got ourselves this dark brownish color here. Come to the light edge of the tree. That's the side of the tree facing towards the nebula. So the left side is in darkness today, and the right side is going to be highlighted. So we're taking raw sienna, come to the edge of your tree, touch the edge, pull in. 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 Just like with the palm fronds, I've got a lift up going on. I touch, lift up, touch, lift up. I had to get myself some more raw sienna. Touch the edge, pull in and lift up, pull in and lift up. You can see there that I'm letting some gaps show through. That's a palm tree thing. Don't ask me to explain the biology. But they got little cracks like that. There we go. Just a little bit of raw sienna. You can see there that some of it's picked up some of the black. Some of it hasn't. Getting that variation in there is key. touch, lift up. There we go. And I'm going to add a little bit of this raw sienna to our sandy hill that our little tree's sitting on. There we go. Don't cover up all the black. You can see there that all that black that I leave visible creates automatic little shadows there. There we go. Easy as that. Wiggle your brush in there. Wiggle it in there. There we go. Maybe one more bit of bark. There we go. All right. And we're almost there. We are almost there. Got just two more things I want to do. I want to add a highlight on our leaves there, but I want to wait for them to dry just a touch more because we're going to be doing pink on our leaves to match the rest of our landscape here. It's going to be like the nebula is shining off the leaves of our palm tree. But we're going to do one little fun step before we do that, and we're going to add some little bubbles and sparkles to our shoreline here. So I'm going to take the handle of my brush. So I flipped it around. I'm not using the bristles. I'm using the handle of the brush. I'm taking that handle, dipping in some white paint. Come up here to your shoreline and poke some little sparkles in. It's like there's some bubbles in your foam. There's a little magic at the beach today. We got a little magic at the beach today. The beach is a magical place. And it's a whole lot of water. It's a whole lot of water, I'll tell you what. And we don't even know what's at the bottom of it. We don't even know. There could be anything down there. All the way down at the bottom. It's just nice to sit there, look at all that water, listen to the water. You can fall asleep listening to the water. There we go. Just a couple little sparkles. I think that's fun. I think that's fun. All right. Enough sparkles. Now we got to get serious. We got to get up here to our palm fronds and finish this painting up here today. So I'm going to take white and magenta. I wouldn't over mix it this time. Just get a little of both on your brush there. A little of both. And you're going to do this the same way that we did our palm fronds in the first place. But this time we want to make sure not to cover up the black completely. So I'm taking white, magenta, and I'll start with the one that I started with first last time. Touch, pull down. Not too much paint. Keep your brush nice and light. And just streak a little bit of pink on there. You can see there that I'm not covering up the black. Keep my brush light. I do one side and then the other, just like before. Keep that brush light. Barely touch. Touch. Lift up. Think like a feather. Think like a feather. Helps if you make those noises. Those help. They'll help you out. There we go. Sparkle those trees up. Got sparkles on our beach. Now we got sparkles on our tree. And that's just magenta and white. I'm doing the exact same technique that I did to put the black on there, but you can just tell there that I'm not covering up the black completely. I'm just letting it layer. Streaking it on top. Once again, giving a contrast between the highlights and the shadows to make it pop. And just to be a little spicy. Just to be a little spicy. I'm going to get some purple and white. Give a little sparkle to my grass down here. Don't leave that grass out of the party. Don't want to leave that grass out of the party. go. And I hope you all remember what the final step to a painting is you've got to sign it. So I'm going to wash out my brush. Now I'll just sign with this brush. But typically what I do if I'm signing with a brush like this is a difficult brush to sign with. So if you only have brushes like this, you can still sign your painting with paint. I think it's cheating to use a Sharpie. You might not, but I think it's cheating. So once again, I'm just going to use the wooden handle of the brush. Dip it in some white paint. Come up here and just streak my little messy signature on there. I say the messier the signature, the more artistic you look. That's my excuse. I know it was me. And there you go. And that will be our painting for the today. Thank you so much for coming out here and painting with me again. And I hope you join me again for our next painting video. Like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram. Whatever you want to do, you do that. And I hope you enjoy this painting just as much as I have. Thanks for painting, and God bless.
Art.